repeating what I said at the plenary debate a few weeks ago when your interim report was adopted. The only route towards an ambitious EU budget, an EU budget that will have enough resources to finance European policies, goes through the own resources. That is why after testing, that's the reality, that's how it is. That is why after testing many different options, the Commission proposed last year a package of 5 new own resources, a package designed to be balanced, simple, and ready to be implemented quickly. Your interim report expressed strong support for new own resources, which I very much welcome, and I really appreciate the support of the European Parliament and the encouragement from the European Parliament on the own resources issue. But your interim report also asked to explore a few other options. A digital levy, a crypto levy, and an online gambling levy that we are going to debate today. In line with its role, the Commission is preparing an objective and thorough assessment of the options put forward by this House. Today, I'm not in a position to share with you details, as we are still finalizing our assessment, but I would like to assure you that that assessment will be shared also with the European Parliament as soon as it is ready, and we are not talking about a very distant future. But on the occasion of our today's debate, let me emphasize 4 points that we should keep in mind. First, it is crucial that any own resources basket generates adequate resources. Secondly, as you mentioned in your report, the own resources package should avoid undue burdens on economic actors, minimize economic distortions, and ensure tax fairness. Third, it should be possible to quickly and to implement it quickly, and any new own resource should be operational by 1st of January 2028 or shortly thereafter. That means that we need clear definitions, harmonized rules, and adequate data to limit tax avoidance. It is important to assess how fast a new own resource can be implemented and whether sectoral tax legislation would need to be introduced beforehand. Fourth, the basket dimension remains crucial. Rather than looking at each own resources in isolation, it is important to look at the basket as a whole and keep in mind the bigger picture, including what we proposed on the expenditure side. I'm happy to see that in your interim report, we can see also the support for the basket approach. While the Commission is convinced that our current package meets this principle, as I said, we will soon share with you our analysis on the additional option suggested by the European Parliament. And the Commission stands ready to act as an honest broker and to work with this House and with the Council to find a common ground on the next EU budget, including on the issue of own resources. I look forward to your interventions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Now I pass the floor for the first round of representatives of the political group to Danusia Nerudova on behalf of EPP. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, dear Chair, dear Commissioner, dear colleagues. From the very beginning of this mandate, we stand with you, Commissioner, in support of your willingness to come forward with the solutions on own resources and help us move beyond the current stalemate. But based on our past experience, we know that some proposals will face negative reactions in the Council. We already know that some member states have concerns about core, while the others oppose ETS. At the end of the day, we all know that everything will never be perfect for everyone. But the alternative is massive cuts to the budget. The very same member states complaining about new own resources will also complain when they will face severe cuts to agriculture, cohesion, competitiveness, and research funding. So as Parliament, we have also come forward with possible solutions in case some proposals in the package are dropped. First, digital levy, already agreed by leaders in 2020. It's a matter of fairness and would primarily affect the large digital giants. Second, a tax on crypto assets. We all know that a significant amount of money circulating in crypto also comes from illicit activities. So this would also contribute to greater transparency. And finally, as Parliament, we believe we can also explore a gambling tax. Let us find a way forward together, because otherwise we will be cutting investments in our future simply because we acted irresponsibly as politicians by indebting the European Union and the future generations. Thanks.
Thank you very much. The next speaker on behalf of S&D is Victor Negrescu.
Commissioner, dear colleagues, Europe is entering a decisive debate about its future budget and its capacity to act. Every day in this House we call for more investments, but also citizens expect us to answer another key question. How do we finance everything fairly and responsibly? This is why I initiated this proposal for a new European own resource designed to finance, in particular, education, youth, mental health, addiction prevention and the protection of minors by taxing online gambling, online betting and betting-like digital activities. Together with the S&D Group, we requested that this issue be placed on the plenary agenda after formally introducing a question for oral answer in order to ensure that the European Parliament starts a serious political debate on this topic. The idea is simple. A fast-growing, highly digitalized and increasingly cross-border industry using the added value of the single market should make a fair contribution to support. Technically, the proposal is similar to national taxing formats. We can discuss a limited European levy, for example, around 1%, applied on the revenues or the turnover generated by major online gambling and betting operators active across the European market. This would not replace the national taxation systems, it would not interfere with the national licensing mechanisms, and it would fully respect member states' competencies in regulating gambling activities. But the potential revenues are significant. If betting-like digital platforms are also included, and if the market continues to grow as expected, the revenues could realistically reach between 2 and 4 billion euros per year during the next EU long-term budget. This means potentially between 14 and 28 billion euros between 2028 and 2034. This is equal to the Erasmus Plus budget in the current MFF. And let us also be honest when we refer to this topic. According to recent estimates published by the industry, illegal online gambling alone already represents around 71% of the market in Europe. This means billions lost in public revenues, weaker protection for consumers and minors, growing additional risks, and major vulnerabilities linked to money laundering and criminal networks operating across borders. This means that even the countries with the big online industry, like Malta, Cyprus and Estonia, are losing money for the national budget. So Europe cannot pretend this problem does not exist. We have to interfere, we have to fight illegal operators, but in the same time, we are going to protect citizens. So Europe must show that it is capable not only of deciding together about how we spend the money, but also how we can build common resources that will be available as soon as possible. Thank you again to everyone supporting this initiative. Thank you.
The next speaker is Julien Sanchez.
Parce qu'elle méconnaît les...
Will, do you understand the basic principles of accounting? The EU does not and has taken on scandalously high levels of debt in recent years, now looking for new own resources to balance its budget. There are plenty of ideas floating around when it comes to taxing companies or citizens. We're talking today about an online gambling and betting tax to finance the European Union. We're familiar with this type of levy in France. We were supposed to receive 100 million in France in 1 year alone. Now, taxing online gambling is a member state competence. It is an attack on national sovereignty. Do not feed addictions try to cut down on duplication, be more efficient in the way that you spend taxpayers' money. You need to show sound financial principles and budgetary management. That's the approach you'd expect of households or companies.
Grazie.
Thank you, Madam President. Welcome, Commissioner Serafin. Today's debate is taking place at an important moment because the evaluation of the multiannual financial framework proposed by the Commission, following on from the Parliament's vote, meant that the Parliament requested more support for agricultural policies, more support for cohesion policies, and more support for competitiveness. That's very clear, Commissioner Serafin. If we are asking to intervene when it comes to spending, we also have to intervene when it comes to income. And today, this tax or levy would be a big benefit to us. And I don't know why you did away with some ideas, such as taxes on big companies. You said that was incompatible with competitiveness. Well, I'm interested to see how the Commission will evaluate these two new ideas for own resources put forward by the Parliament while keeping high levels of investment. Thank you.
Stine Bosse.
Thank you very much, Chairman, Commissioner. Jeg taler på dansk.
Now I'll switch to Danish. Yes, we are very good here in the Parliament and elsewhere of drawing up a wish list, a long and expensive wish list, and there are very good reasons to do this, because of course we have to ensure that the EU gets ever stronger. We are under considerable external pressure, and we need to further develop the EU's resources for health, energy structure, transport structure, defence. These are to defend our founding values. If we want a new dialogue with new innovative proposals, we can come up with more and more. This is absolutely crucial. We need stability for the EU, and in order to do this, we need our own resources. But we mustn't forget, as members of the Parliament, and the Commission is more than aware of this, is that it's up to the financial ministers back in our own countries that we're not talking about increasing taxes on the one hand and cutting them for others. Thank you.
Vielen Dank.
Thank you. On a rainy Sunday, you can while away your time gambling online or placing a bet during the Football World Cup. We are seeing an explosive rise in online gambling businesses, billions being made across the European Union. So it makes perfect sense to consider whether this wealthy industry that is turning a tidy profit could chip in during these difficult times and help to finance common European priorities. We support this initiative. We believe that online gambling and betting is a cross-border business and needs to be taxed at European level. Tax rates in member states vary from 5 to 40%. And so we need to introduce an online gambling and betting levy as an own resource so that we can finance EU priorities and help small businesses and prevent them having to pick up the tab. Thank you.
Every way of funding the EU is the wrong way, in the opinion of some member states. And the right-wing populists think that always to fund the European Union is wrong. The member states' right to tax should, of course, not be compromised by transferring taxation rights to the EU, but in front of the US digital giants, for instance, individual states are helpless. It is only natural that the taxation of digital services and imported goods be carried out at the EU level. Also, taxation of stock exchange transactions and private flights could be done at the EU level. When it comes to gambling and betting, the situation is not so clear because many member states already collect revenues through license fees and taxes. However, taxing gambling at the EU level would make sense because companies are concentrated in low regulation countries, and that would also encourage member states to tackle harmful gambling more than now.
Speaker is Alexander Jungblut.
Sehr geehrte Frau
Madam President, the principle of subsidiarity is being abused here, and let me explain to you why. This principle is important on an EU level, which says that the EU can only raise resources in some areas which have to fall within their exclusive competences. So when the political goals of member states cannot be reached alone, I am convinced that the Commission's proposal does not help or support member states. Rather, it uses their own resources and erodes the autonomy of individual countries. The ability to raise funds here has to fall to national governments because they're aware of their own internal problems and can manage them better. Think about our hospitals, our schools, our local neighbourhoods. They are aware of what is at stake and how to resolve their problems. Who knows the situation better than the regions themselves? But the Commission thinks otherwise. They have decided to target betting and gambling. Now, this is bad in itself, but it gets worse. They want to remove important resources from national budgets in order to tackle legal gambling with enormous risks for consumer protection. Thank you.
Der nächste Redner ist Carlo Ressler.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioner, colleagues. If we want to finance security, competitiveness, and the energy transition, and today this is no longer an issue of wanting, it is an issue of preserving the Europe that we know, then the Union has to have adequate and stable financing resources. It is important to seriously talk about good financial resources, including the own resources from online gambling and betting. This is a sector that is extremely digital, cross-border, and that makes big revenues thanks to the single market. It is therefore legitimate to see whether a part of those revenues can be directed to help finance our common priorities. This will help reduce the pressure on national contributions on the European economy and on our citizens. This is extremely important today when we are facing big challenges, when the European budget has to find a solution to pay off its common debt. This proposal, therefore, needs careful and serious consideration. I want to thank the European Commission, but we have to be careful and think of the whole package. We have to think of justice, of the fact that this has to be implemented. New own resources needs to be viewed as part of the solution, as part of the response by the European Union, who needs to be financially responsible.
Speaker Sandra Gomez Lopez.
Gracias.
Thank you. Commissioner, today we're not talking about balancing the MFF with more own resources. Today, we are saying that own resources have to meet the criteria of social justice and European sovereignty. And the European Parliament's proposal of including online betting as own resource is going in the right direction. It's an activity that creates no real value. It doesn't make us better or more competitiveness, rather the opposite, people are making money off the vulnerability of young, precarious people. And if we use the same business model, well, we could also look at social media or speculation in the form of cryptocurrency. And there is an invisible thread through all of this, and that is addiction. We're facing business models that are designed to monetize our time, to capture the attention of young people, and to use up their savings. They have created a system that not only manipulates vulnerability, it creates it, it feeds it, and it turns it into a profitable business model. And when this model creates such huge social costs in the form of the mental health of young people, then Europe's response cannot be inaction or looking the other way. Commissioner, often it seems that Europe is paralysed by through its fear of Trump, and we know very well that some significant resources such as the digital tax have been kept in a drawer because of fear of American tech companies. But the solution can never be asking more effort of our companies or of our families. The solution has to be requiring those who make money from our single market to contribute more and who don't give us anything positive in exchange. So this proposal should be included in the proposal for own resources, and there should be specific taxation on cryptocurrency as well. There's been an addiction industry, which is a machine to turn the vulnerability of our young people into economic profits. Our goal should be to control this, to get them to pay for the damage they create, and to look out for the future of our youth.
Eriksson.
Tack, talman.
Thank you, President. The imagination appears to know no bounds when it comes to inventing new taxes and levies in the European Union. We hear about cryptocurrencies, electro-waste, new real estate taxes, a levy on oil companies, luxury goods such as sports cars, or financial transaction taxes, digital advertising, and now we have a new proposal, a levy on online gambling and betting. We should be allowing people and companies freedom of choice instead of inventing new taxes and placing greater burdens on citizens. As everyone knows, this will harm our competitiveness. Now, would you accept a blue card from Victor Negresco?
Colleague, you forgot something really important. The data presented by the industry. 71% of the market is composed of illegal platforms. That means your citizens are going online right now, spending their money on illegal platforms, and those platforms are not taxed at national level, not at all. So we need to approach this issue at European level. Do you agree in us fighting against those illegal platforms? Do you agree that together we can fight better against these illegal platforms? In the MFF report of the European Parliament, together with the co-rapporteurs on own resources, we are coming with this proposal. So what is your opinion about illegal platforms?
Of course, we need to tackle the scourge of illegal business. That is a different matter. We need to tackle that problem through law enforcement. That is entirely different to the idea of introducing a new tax. Of course, you're right. Illegal and criminal activities must be tackled, but we should not increase taxes. That will not solve this dilemma. more taxes will make life harder for honest businesses and ensure that they are competitive. It's the wrong approach.
Ivan Verhofstadt.
Monsieur le Commissaire.
Commissioner, what if we broke taboos? What if we finally brought about the reforms we need to get its own resources? The proposal for online betting is an interesting path, but it's the tip of the iceberg. For decades, we've known that we have an issue with regarding tax competition within Europe. We know that we've got a problem to capture the added value created by multinationals, specifically in the digital area. Today, the whole European edifice could crumble, and it would be unacceptable to say that we can't act on tax. With the rise of AI, if we do nothing within 10 years to solve this problem, then our entire social system will crumble. Honourable members, it's time to leave certain taboos aside, to be creative and to reinvent our tax system. And that needs to be done at the European level, because only together can we take back control faced with the giants.
See, the next speaker is João Oliveira.
Thank you, President. Commissioner Šefčovič. The EU budget should be financed with national contributions in line with GDP. This is the fairest solution. Countries which benefit from the EU's policies will continue to contribute to the budget. Those who suffer will be compensated. The new proposal for EU's own resources threatens this redistribution model and may end up with the opposite effect. A tax on tobacco or electronic waste has meant that Portugal has ended up contributing more to the EU budget than Germany or France. It is turning the whole budgetary model on its head. Now, if you look at taxing gambling and betting online, this is also an issue because Portugal already has a 25% tax on the net income, on gross income from gaming and betting online. Now, this will completely vanish if this becomes an own resource for the EU. We would prefer that we do not bet on this. We don't want to run the risk of losing. We should put a stop to these online betting. This is not a game that we want to play.
Thomas Geisel, bitte schön, Herr Geisel.
Mr. Geisel. President, Commissioner, honourable members. In 2025, the turnover was almost 130 billion euro in European online gambling and betting markets. Business is booming and has moved online. Service providers are often located in low-tax countries such as Malta. And gambling is not without risk. It is known to be addictive. 5 to 6 million people in Europe are addicted to gambling, and so it is a good idea to tax this business. Should it become a new own resource for the EU budget? That's a different matter entirely. There are not really any own resources per se, because tax-raising powers are member state competence alone, and EU-wide tax to benefit the EU budget would not be possible without unanimity in the Council. And if it were raised, it could be put to better use. Rather than giving this money to Ms von der Leyen's Commission, it would be far better to tackle tax havens and ensure proper control of digital companies.
Thank you, President, Commissioner. The approval of Next Generation funds meant that 800 billion euros of joint debt was issued. In the final straight of these funds, we have to analyse what economic impact they've had and whether they've hit their objectives. However, we don't have information, not even the total final discharge. Furthermore, the publications of the European Court of Auditors and the most recent information about what's happening in Spain show that we are not exactly facing a success story. Today, we have to look at how to pay this joint debt, and we should ask ourselves what the Council and the Commission have done to do that. In 2020, they decided to create new own resources with which they could finance that debt. And it's still held up today. So what progress has been made? And the Commission's proposal for the upcoming MFF is to make cuts, for example, to the CAP or to the Cohesion Fund, and the creation of new taxes that the Council has already said it won't approve and are not even present in today's debate. So the easy option would be to talk about emitting more debt, which would punish companies and individuals through higher taxes to pay for the debt of a programme that we can't even say has had any success. So when it comes to creating new tax figures, what we really need is to talk about refinancing that debt in more flexible terms and a more exhaustive evaluation of all the budget lines and programmes in the European budget. I think that's the most responsible way to do things. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jean-Marc Jamin.
Chers collègues,
Honourable members, today in this chamber we have taken a historic decision on the next annual EU budget. Let's sum it up as follows. Let's build a future without decimating solidarity policies that are the beating heart of our European Union. This is an unprecedented step, the most sweeping change since the Delors years. The Parliament has never come forward such a wide-ranging proposal to better equip the European Union to grapple with future challenges. We now need to engage in debate with member states. I don't know what you would say about the new sectors open. What about defence, space, crypto, housing? Those are key challenges. And of course, we need own resources to tackle those challenges. We seem to have a blockade. And so under the leadership of Sandra Gomez, we in the Parliament have come forward with fresh proposals, such as the online gambling tax and a digital services levy. So a decision lies ahead. We need to decide on own resources. We need to decide whether we will take action here. Thank you.
Thank you, President. There have always been strange ideas about the own resources, but this is amongst the worst that I've ever heard of. A new tax will be disrupting licensed companies in the European Union. It puts them at a competitive disadvantage. It encourages them to relocate to third countries and encourages clients to prefer non-EU illegal operators. This ensures impunity where they don't have to pay taxes, and the most basic consumer safeguards will not be applied. I must emphasize that this sector contributes to more than 10% of Malta's GDP. The same sector follows strict consumer protection standards and creates high-quality jobs. No member state is as exposed as Malta. The Maltese people will be bearing the brunt of this flawed policy that kicks out companies from the European Union. Let's not waste time. The own resources require unanimity. For us, this proposal is a non-starter. I can't speak on behalf of the current government. This is since the idea is being promoted by the socialists. But I must be clear. A future nationalist party government will use the veto without thinking twice. Let's do ourselves a favor. Let's treat this subject as a subject that has the member states' competencies only. We don't have the competency to change this. If we don't understand this argument, then we will understand nothing.
So, dear colleague, first of all, again, Malta is losing money because of the illegal platforms. This is the first element. And what's your opinion on this point? The second element, which I think is relevant, Malta will remain competitive because we are not affecting the national regulations, not at all. It's not about national regulations. And third on our list, I think is crucial, this initiative was co-signed by EPP members as well, Renew members, Green members, from all political sides, and it was voted because it is included in the MFF report approved by this House. So it's a common initiative of the Parliament.
As I've already said, this socialist proposal is harmful to Malta. The socialist proposal makes the sector into an illegal one. The socialist proposal sends legal companies to operate outside of the EU. So this socialist proposal is a flawed one. This should be a national competence. We don't need any socialist proposals that are harmful to the European market.
There is an additional question, David. Yeah, because he has the right to make a second.
To be clear, no one wants to have an impact on the companies in Malta, but companies present in Malta make their revenues on the Romanian market, on the German market, on the French market. So the single market is important. Do you support the single market for the betting industry? If you do that, then you support also European responsibility.
Mr. Negrescu, I've agreed on your proposals in the past, but I must be honest with you. The importance of this sector cannot be stressed upon. This Maltese sector is stressing to me that this is crazy. You cannot understand this sector if your country does not respect this sector enough. For us, this is a very important sector. We will not let anyone dictate our terms on Malta. Malta will decide on this market, especially from those from the Socialist Party.
The next speaker is Carla Tavares.
Thank you, Madam President. Commissioner Serafin, the position of the Parliament is set out clearly in the mandate which we receive for the next MFF. We cannot accept an EU budget that is unambitious in its objectives and lacking in funds. And we agree that the next MFF cannot be an exercise in restraint disguised as ambition. It needs to be an instrument which supports investment and cohesion, able to support a Europe which protects and leads and which is committed to strengthen its autonomy in a world which is ever more unstable and unpredictable. Commissioner, let me say that we welcome and support the approach taken by the European Commission in their attempts to identify new own resources. In this House, we have also done this work. Let me turn to the two co-rapporteurs on own resources who are working together with this. The proposal that we are discussing today is an example of one of our contributions to the ambition that we all share for our next MFF. We know that we are under no illusions. An ambitious and credible budget can only tackle the challenge we're faced with. It can only be done with new resources, with a new basket of own resources. If we don't have own resources, we will not have new goals, new ambitions, new objectives. And we believe that the debate here today is a contribution to future ambition as well. Thank you, President and Madam Tavares. You were saying that with the creation of this new source of own resources, are you saying that we will not in Portugal end up contributing more to the budget? Can you guarantee that Portugal will not lose out from its national budget by over-contributing to own resources to finance the EU? And then my second question. Do you support this proposal that illegal gambling will then be taxable? If it's illegal, it can't be taxable, as it can't be subject to a national or European taxes, and therefore we cannot have illegal resources going into the EU's own resources. As we say back home, you create the path as you walk along it, and we believe we are here to find solutions and alternatives to meet the scope of the ambition that you and I want to see, and this is one way forward. And as we say as well, we shouldn't disregard something we're completely unfamiliar with without looking into it. And I think that would be the responsible approach to the pro-European parties in this Parliament, and I'm sure you will remain one of them.
Next speaker is Lidia Pereira.
Colleagues, the possibility of having more money for the EU's budget from the gambling sector is worthy of consideration with pragmatism and with an awareness of our responsibility here. This sector exists, yes, it cannot be avoided, but it's also true that many operators are acting beyond national borders. They are subject to different regulatory systems, and they manage to evade both control, oversight, and taxes. More than 25 billion euros are lost every year as a result of this. Therefore, it does make sense to reassess this activity in order to fund the EU's activities. But let's be clear, it's not enough to look for new own resources. We need a demanding and rigorous regulatory framework with better oversight and better cooperation between the member states. And what is most important is that we have greater protection for those who are playing, because it is an addiction. It gives rise to addictive behavior. It can destroy our citizens' financial stability, families, and damage mental health. I don't want an EU which is feeding off the income from the gambling industry. We have to look at the digital arena and traditional media to raise awareness of this. We need transparency. We need accountability. If we have regulation, that means we need prevention as well. And the EU needs to protect its citizens first of all, and only after that will we move on to protecting our budget. Thank you.
Again from Mr. Oliveira.
Thank you, President. Madam Pereira, seeing as you talked about illegal gambling as well, I'll put the same question to you as I put to Madam Tavares. If there are taxes which are not raised because the games are and the betting is illegal, how will this change now? Are you going to legalize the betting and gambling so that you can tax them? And then those taxes should go to national authorities? And why would these taxes on legal activity go to the EU? And then you talked about addiction as well. How do you think we can reconcile taxing these activities when our priority should be tackling the addictive nature of these games and the betting, and online betting in particular, especially amongst our younger citizens? Well, I may well make up part of an institution, but I don't trust institutions. I would like this institution itself to do its work, but I would like also to trust our police forces and national authorities to ensure that laws are adhered to. That's my answer to your first question. Secondly, addiction has to be fought against, and I mentioned prevention. It is crucial that we have a pact to tackle addiction and addictive behavior, which destroys lives in many cases and endangers the lives of many families. We're talking particularly about protecting the youngest generations because they are most vulnerable when faced with the dangers in the digital world. Thank you.
There is again a blue card, but it was not, no, it's not allowed. Sorry, I have to explain that, Mr. Jamin, because the blue card was risen not during her speech, but later. So I now again explain the rules. The blue card must be risen during the original speech, not during the answer. No, it was not risen before. Sorry, no, it was not. We see that here on the device. Not during the answer, not as an add-on to the answer, just to the original speech. That is the rule. Sorry to say that. I'll just explain what the rules are. So, Helder Sousa Silva, please.
Madam President, Commissioner, colleagues. Ensuring appropriate and predictable funding for the EU is one of the main factors that we have to guarantee the effectiveness and success of the European budget. Introducing new own resources is absolutely crucial. It will mean that the EU can tackle new challenges and needs and meet the expectations of its citizens and businesses. In order to implement both traditional and new political priorities, it is crucial to raise new resources, but without asking for more contributions from national budgets, nor increasing taxes for European citizens or businesses. At the moment, there are economic sectors which manage to enjoy the advantages of the EU single market, but contribute little or nothing to its smooth workings. Therefore, we'd like to send out a clear message that we would support 4 new sources of own resources. We are currently looking at those today. One of these own resources would be a tax on online betting and gambling. Now, this is an untaxed sector at the moment. We believe it comes down to a question of tax fairness, because offline gambling and betting is already taxed, and this could feed into our EU budget so that all of those who enjoy the benefits of the EU project contribute to its smooth working.
Card from Mr. Germain. Do you accept it?
President, today I don't accept blue cards because I'm trying to protect our Commissioner Piotr Serafin and the level of this plenary, because it's too much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I cannot give it to you. Sorry. Then we come to the Catch the Eye. The first on Catch the Eye is Juan Fernando López Aguilar.
Danke, Frau Präsidentin, Kommissario.
Commissioner, how many have you heard in this hemicycle that you can't do more with less? Own resources, what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about sources of revenue for the European Union that goes beyond VAT, beyond border taxes, and new taxes such as on plastics or tobacco or electronic waste. Now, a new business model such as online gambling, which not only exploits the vulnerabilities of precarious people, we can actually dissuade this practice and generate resources. That's not the end of things, though. For the European Union to fulfill its ambitions in defence and security, or cohesion, or the CAP, it has to be able to get into joint debt, such as for Next Generation. European joint debt and own resources are the only way to do more with more. Thank you.
The last speaker on the Catch the Eye is Michael McNamara. Mike, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice President. I very much welcome this debate. Ireland, part of which I represent in this House, already has a gambling tax of 2% levy on all bets laid in Ireland and 2% levy equally on online bets in Ireland. I have no problem with increasing that tax. I mean, clearly gambling is a major issue. It's an issue that's destroying particularly young lives, as we see more and more young people becoming addicted to gambling. We know sports stars, etc., telling their stories. And I mean, I think we should follow the policy of taxing things that are bad and seeking to reduce taxes on things that are good. So I have no problem with it whatsoever. My only question would be, if this EU tax comes in, will that be as well as national taxes, or will it somehow be instead of national taxes, which I would have a problem with? So I would welcome clarification from the Commissioner on that, but in principle I have no problem whatsoever with taxing the gambling industry and taxing them heavily for the damage that they're causing in society.
Thank you very much, and now I pass the floor again for the reply of the Commission. Mr. Serafin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for this debate. I have a few reflections. The first one is related to many of the voices I have heard here. Formally speaking, the topic is a new own resource, but in practice, what we are debating today whether in the next multi-annual budget there will be enough of resources to finance our common priorities. This is the very nature of this debate. And I think we have to be honest. If we want to have funds for cohesion policy, for agriculture policy, for research and development, for competitiveness, it's not enough to talk only how to spend money. We also need to talk about how to collect the resources so that we can finance common policies. And that I think everyone should remember. Sometimes I appreciate if there are voices, if there are people, and there are people, including in this room, that don't want to see common agriculture policy, that don't want to see cohesion policy, then I really understand they have a right to be against own resources. But if you support common European policies, you need to also engage into a common process of looking for the way to finance the EU budget. So that would be my first reflection. The second one, I said at the beginning, we are still working on the assessment of the proposal of the European Parliament. But I would appeal to you. I have heard some voices even today, and I'm aware that there is no perfect candidate for new own resources. And I know that also the package that we have presented with 5 candidates, there is a criticism from that or the other corner. And you have heard it also today. We are discussing about the online gambling, but even on that topic, you will find critical voices. There will be critical voices on each and every proposal. But we should not, when we will be reflecting about your proposals, it is not our intention to replace the package which is already on the table. It will be rather to complement it with some new ideas that come from the European Parliament. The third reflection, I was thanking you already for the interim report, but what I want to also share with you, and this is the source of my optimism, you put on the table 3 new ideas, but I also know, we all know, because it was said by the President of the European Council after the first discussion among the heads of states and governments, that there were many heads of states and governments that approach with an open mind your ideas. And that's also the reason why I'm getting a bit more optimistic that maybe we will manage to build something on that basis. And finally, because there were also some concrete questions, indeed, I'm not in a position right now to give concrete answers. As I said at the beginning, we are working on the assessment of your proposals. They will be published, I believe, relatively soon, and you will get them. But I also have to be clear. We were tasked by you, and we were also asked by the President of the European Council to work on the assessment of the European Parliament's proposal. And I really appreciate that the European Parliament took an active role in this exercise, because, as I have already said on many occasions, this topic is politically sensitive, and your support is and will remain crucial to find a good agreement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Dear colleagues, the debate is closed for this item on the agenda. The next item on the agenda are debates on cases of breaches of human rights, democracy and the rule of law, according to Rule 150. And we will begin with the authors. The first will be Davor Ivo Stier.